about the time we faced.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the Marvel Evolution show with myself, Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And today we are doing a special News Thursday edition. We had our Sunday show with Lucky Mangione. And so with that, we are doing the news today. We are streaming live to Twitter, our Twitch accounts, our Facebook page, our YouTube, 2 out of the 3 Facebook groups now. That would be the DC Evolution and the Star Wars Evolution. We're having a hiccup with the Marvel Evolution group, but we'll get that fixed. With that being said, we want to start off with some DC news. So DC is going fast and furious in canceling movies. So we know that Batgirl is now canceled. We also know with Batgirl being canceled that Michael Keaton's Batman may be in jeopardy as well. Because recent news had it that Affleck will be doing the Batman scenes in Aquaman 2 due to some kind of scheduling conflicts. It also seems like we're getting some news today that HBO Max and Discovery Plus will be merging. And it looks like that will happen starting in 2023 in the US. Some more news out of that today was basically that DC wants to set up their own studio. So DC has a studio. They want to model it after what Marvel and Kevin Feige have done, and they want a 10-year plan. So what are your thoughts on that DC news that's going around?
Well, I love how you said that they're moving fast and furious, because my first thought is family, and they don't certainly care about the Bat family since they're getting rid of Batgirl. Yeah, I mean, I think moving forward, I think one of the biggest issues with DC, it kind of all hinges on that Flash film and where that direction would eventually point them in the future. Unfortunately, I don't think they know where that direction is at this time. And, we've seen that some projects might be on the chopping block at DC. I know I've seen people throw out rumors that we should be worried about things like Titans and the Harley Quinn animated show and stuff like that. But I've also seen things like Blue Beetle as well, which I thought was kind of an interesting one, because both Batgirl and Blue Beetle have already started production. And I think Batgirl had millions and millions of dollars involved in that project. So it's kind of concerning that they would shelve something like that. I'm not sure if it's because it just doesn't fit in with their view of the future or not, but it seems like it's a little late to kind of mix things up, in my opinion. So
Yeah, interesting too. It also sounds like they're moving the slate around also. So it looks like movies are getting pushed back. Flash, Aquaman, I think even Black Adam are all getting adjusted dates now because of everything going on. And this seems like a daily thing. Also, too, season 13, or this will be the last season of The Flash with 13 episodes on CW as well. So, not all sure what's going on here with DC and Warner Brothers, but something to keep an eye on. And I know a lot of it's coming from that Discovery Plus merger. But the good news is that Peacemaker season 2 is still going strong, so no changes with that. At least they're doing that, because that show was a success, and you don't want to do it. And I guess my question is Batgirl was pretty much at the finish line, I think, if I remember correctly. Why not put that on HBO Max?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would do. I know that they had that issue where they brought up the question of whether or not to do that with the Flash movie, and it was so pivotal that they couldn't really do that, but then they really, could, but then they really didn't want to. So I think the bigger issue comes here is they need to kind of figure out what the story is that they're going to tell, because movies like Shazam, movies like Black Adam, they kind of felt like that they were almost like an afterthought, and that those movies were going to be like almost the next one's coming out or the next movie for Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and the new Black Adam movie almost felt like they would almost get wiped away when the Flash movie.
Yep.
So I've been personally concerned about that, but this kind of gives me some hope that for those two movies in particular, maybe they do have a future in WB, Black Adam. Characters like what was it? Pierce Brosnan was playing Dr. Fate.
Yep.
That's a huge character, and I don't want to see that be a one and done character on the big screen. So
Yeah, we'll have to see, and hopefully, this is an evolving thing with what's going on with DC. But hopefully, things get ironed out because Shazam has done well. Aquaman, did well. I'm still skeptical about Black Adam. But Hawkman and Dr. Fate looks pretty cool. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Hey Roxy, thanks for catching on with us today. I see you out there with us. Any other thoughts on DC before we move to the Marvel side of things?
No, just I will actually say this: tomorrow is actually the day that the Sandman actually will show up on Netflix. So even though that's technically, I guess, Vertigo under DC, looking forward to that. So that will be on Netflix. It doesn't really necessarily like tie into, I think, the bigger DCEU by any means. Looks like it's going to be its own little like kind of closed off entity. But yeah, so I'm excited for that. So DC fans, wait for that.
So moving on to the Marvel side of things here. So Kevin Feige did talk about a new approach with Avengers movies going forward. He went and said, well, it's never about going bigger just to go bigger. Sometimes by the nature of the number of characters that you have in the toy box to bring into the sandbox of the story, things can get bigger. But, the truth is we were doing phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. There were less projects over more years. And they were smaller projects and individual character stories. And it felt appropriate at that point that after, every 2 or 3 years that it took for a phase, we would do an Avengers film. As 4 and 5 and 6 were coming together, there are more projects in less years because of all the amazing stuff we're now allowed to do on Disney Plus, and getting more characters from Fox, the Fantastic Four and Deadpool, that it felt like, and certainly after Infinity War and Endgame, that we thought Avengers movies aren't cappers. So that's interesting. And he's, completely agree. Disney Plus has changed the game for them, right? Because we're getting other team ups, we're getting cameos. You don't necessarily have to have a big Avengers event in every phase.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think that the Avengers were a large part of the MCU moving forward for the last 10 years. We can kind of take our foot off the gas with the Avengers for a little while, let some other people kind of step into the fold, and then pull it all back together.
Yeah. And then you continue to say about so many of our movies now, the Multiverse of Madness, what you're about to see in Quantumania, are big team-up films introducing big parts of the mythology, and that the Avengers films really should be the capper to a saga, which is really what we wanted to lay the groundwork for today, is say we are currently in the midst of Multiverse Saga, which will culminate in 2 Avengers films, which makes the thing now, instead of having one every phase, let it cap the saga. It's like, let everyone do their things and then bring together to a big event at the end of the saga, which they're doing with the Multiverse saga. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'm really hoping that, like Infinity War and Endgame, the Kang Dynasty is like the part 1 to Secret Wars. And I'm really hoping that the Kang Dynasty leads into Secret Wars. It looks like with the timing of when those movies are planned to be released, it looks like that could be possible. So,
I don't know. Thinking here about my trilogy theory for Kang, I wonder if Quantumania is going to be more Kang the Conqueror, and then the Kang Dynasty, and then Secret Wars to cap off that Kang trilogy, because it doesn't sound like he'll be the main villain, but he'll be a big threat in that movie. So.
Almost like pulling the strings behind the scenes. So that would be really interesting if they did sort of make that like his soft introduction into the MCU through that, where he just, everything zooms out and it's like, oh, it's been Kang doing this the whole time. Yep. And then boom. So
especially after what we saw at the end of Loki season 1. Circling back to Batgirl, Roxy says that I heard Batgirl test screenings were bad, so they scrapped it and decided to cut their losses. But that was like a $90 million loss. That's a huge loss, but I guess they can write that off or whatever. So
Yeah, it's kind of a waste in my mind, but they, like you said, they should have just put it on HBO Max. But since they're going to be doing that merger with Discovery, kind of sliding into one, it looks like, maybe one day it'll make its way on there. We can always start a petition.
yeah, like the Snyder Cut tradition.
So,
Kevin Feige on why they announced up to Phase 6 at San Diego Comic-Con. He said, and it felt like we needed to let people know. People used to have that guide point of when an Avengers would come to cap the phase. It felt like announcing today that the Multiverse Saga and 2 Avengers films would cap that was something that we needed to share. And he did tease before that, saying that, all of our plans will be known soon. And we got a pretty big chunk at SDCC, and we're going to have D23 next month, which is going to fill in the rest of Phase 6, and hopefully some announcements that we'll talk about later that have been teased by some actors recently in the past day or two.
cool deal.
Chris Pratt on his plans in the MCU after Guardians of the Galaxy 3. There are no plans for that right now. I think anything is possible. Anything is possible. There's multiverse thing. I'm not saying I am, but if a character gets killed, actually turns out there are like crazy wormholes to bring people back. So
Interesting.
So we got a comment here from the group. Looks like best thing to come out of Warner Brothers this year is the Batman, which was great. And multiverse video game.
Oh, multiverses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I haven't played that game. That game does look very interesting, but yeah, they definitely need to figure it out over there at Warner Brothers. It's very concerning.
Yep, definitely. And I completely agree on the Batman. I love that. It was a true Batman detective film, and hopefully they do some more like that.
It was fantastic. I hope we get a trilogy of
Mhm.
that. That would be awesome. And I honestly love the format of that film because we didn't get just like one villain in that film. We got like a handful of villains
Yep.
in that film. And I hope that they continue to do that moving forward if they make a second and a third movie. So
Agreed. Wakanda Forever time. So Atlantis will be called Talokan. So they're kind of going back into. Oh, before I continue, Roxy says agreed. She loves Batman. So
mhm.
good. But it looks like they're tying more of the Atlanteans to the Mayan and Aztec culture. And basically, they're not going to be Atlanteans further separating themselves from the Aquaman. And they're going to be Talokan. And Talokan is based on Talokan, one of the underworld realms in the Aztec codices, ruled by the rain god Talok. A paradise for the souls of who died in water or storm-related death. Talok is a member of the pantheon of the gods in Aztec religion. So we're getting more gods. So we have the Egyptian pantheon, and now we're getting the Aztec pantheon. It's a supreme god of rain, also god of earthly fertility and of water. Widely worshipped as a beneficent giver of life and sustenance. He was feared for his ability to send hail, thunder, and lightning, and for being the lord of the powerful element of water. Talok is also associated with caves, springs, and mountains, most significantly the sacred mountain in which he was believed to reside. His animal forms include herons and water-dwelling creatures such as amphibians, snails, and possibly sea creatures, particularly shellfish. So this sounds like it's a perfect tie-in to Namor and what they're going to do and how they're going to tie them to that Mexico/Central America region.
It also kind of seems like they're leaning more into the supernatural side of things rather than like Atlantis being like a species that evolved that way,
Yep.
or anything else. So that'll be really interesting to see. I'm also curious too. I feel like that deity is like the sibling of Quetzalcoatl, the one that we saw in Thor. which I-
Possibly, yeah.
yeah, so like I feel like that might have been maybe a little reference in there that they might have thrown since Wakanda Forever was coming, and we would see Namor and see that maybe explained a little bit more.
And plus, we're getting the Jaguar God as well, it sounds like, also. So they're definitely setting those ties there and putting that in. The production designer for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever has confirmed that Namor's throne is designed after the jaws of a megalodon shark. So you saw that throne picture in the trailer, you know, that's a
awesome.
megalodon shark's jaws.
Yeah, that's an awesome throne, by the way. That scene where he like is basically like lowering down onto the throne or rising up. I don't remember which one it was, but yeah, that's an awesome scene. He's got the headdress on and the massive shark jaws, and yeah,
And he looks like he's about ready to set it off too.
yeah, totally.
Winston Duke, who does play M'Baku in the franchise, on fan expectations, he said, "It's also important to let go of any expectation that this movie will be Black Panther 1. This is going to be its own thing. This narrative has evolved and it's changed just like all characters, just like the circumstances and Wakanda itself. I had to let go of expectation of this being anything like the first movie and allowing this movie to be its own thing, which it's going to be because we have, instead of an internal conflict in Wakanda, we have a new enemy. We have the United Nations involvement. It looks like we have something happens to Shuri at one point. We have the Queen, basically, pleading to the United Nations, and so who else turns their back on them, and potentially, hopefully, fingers crossed, Doom is pulling some strings as well. And they're also dealing with the death of T'Challa also. So a lot of stuff going on in this movie, and that's why I can see it's gonna be very different from the first movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also kind of curious, we'll see the transition of the mantle of the Black Panther. I wonder if this is going to be something that maybe somebody might rise as a challenger for down the road at some point. I've kind of like made that little interesting thing about like a end credit scene where basically you have like an end credit scene where it'd be interesting if Shuri like finally sits down on the throne, is like, now I'm Wakanda's Black Panther, and then it's like, oh, you have a challenger now, like for the throne, and that would be like an awesome little cliffhanger, like to leave that movie
Yep.
on. So, and I think they said we're gonna get possibly like a Killmonger reference in this film too.
Potentially. So we'll see how that what happens with that. I don't think they're bringing him back, but it could be some kind of thing like Spirit World, maybe Ancestral Plane, possibly. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't think it's anything major.
Yeah, one of those, like maybe she like speaks to him briefly
Yeah,
through the ancestral plane or something. I mean, I guess they could use like older footage or something if
or
they
like
had.
a flashback.
Yeah, or use like a flashback or something like that for that. So that would be interesting.
So on your challenger for the throne, remember in the first Black Panther that M'Baku was pretty much against Shuri,
Mhm.
technology in the hands of a child. So if that challenger comes, I wonder if it will be M'Baku.
Baku. Yeah. And I mean, he has that scene in the trailer too, where like when it looks like the Atlanteans come out of the water and start to attack Wakanda, he's like one of the first ones to go running and jump off a boat and start swinging. So you never know. He may lead that charge and be like, hey, I don't think Wakanda was, defended as properly as it should have. Now I want a challenge for the throne type thing. So,
And here's a nice theory, which I like this one from the chat. Soldiers in the trailer work for Doom is my personal theory, which I could see that, especially when we see them at the beginning, possibly in the water, and then other places too that we see them as well. Because I think if I remember correctly, there's a theory that Blake Bell is playing Lucia Van Bardas, who is tied to Latveria as well. So
hmm.
she could be a scientist on that rig, possibly. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm curious too, and this is a little bit out in left field, but as we see like potentially like maybe a second Eternals movie, if things like this ancient city that's underwater now is ever referenced, or if they ever reference like it falling into the ocean or anything like that, like it would be really interesting to see what history this has throughout the MCU. Like how did Atlantis come to be in essence?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point.
yeah.
UFC fighter Kamaru Usman scores guest starring role in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Now, this is not a new addition. He's been on the cast the entire time, but this news has just come out recently. So that's interesting to see what role he's going to play. If he's going to be on one of the Wakandan tribes or another adversary or something. But interesting to see.
Maybe he's just beating up Atlanteans.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like a Wakandan general, or maybe he's just a foot soldier, who
Or
knows?
maybe he's a replacement for Wakibi and leads the border tribe maybe in this one.
Yeah, because he's not going to be in this movie. He
Yep.
had like a scheduling conflict or something, didn't he?
Yeah. Tanak Huerta on Namor's deep admiration for Chadwick Boseman and T'Challa. He wanted to say, well, my character and personally it is fun because my character has a deep admiration for Black Panther, T'Challa, but me as an actor and as a simple human being, what Chadwick means, so powerful, so deep, it's extraordinary, and it's big inspiration. So it's good to see, as more he talks and I see more of him, I'm just loving him in this role.
Yeah. No. I think his portrayal of this character is probably going to be pretty spot on for the ego. It seems like he's kind of got Namor's like ego kind of down in the trailer, you know.
Yep.
So, but what's funny is you go and you watch like his portrayal of that, and then you go and you listen to him like speak, or you just watch like a brief. He seems like a nice guy. So,
Yeah.
I guess it's like a switch that he just flips like for playing that character. So,
Exactly. He went on to talk about filling the void, but no one will truly replace Boseman's impact on the franchise or the world. He went on to say, so on different levels in fiction and in the real life, to be part of this and feel his presence through the legacy, through the people who were involved in this project is fantastic. As I mentioned a moment before, it's like his shadow is in the wall. So you line the shadow and then you put a lot of colors and music and love, and you're part of that because it's your colors as well. Your culture, your music is there, and it's beautiful to be part of that. You know what I mean? So he's fully in, like I said, he's saying the right stuff. And just every time I see him in an interview or any of that kind of stuff, I'm loving it.
mm-hmm.
Moving on to Kang Dynasty, Daniel Destin Cretton, who directed Shang-Chi, will be directing part 1 of the 2-part Avengers series. He's also an executive producer on Wonder Man and will be directing the Shang-Chi sequel. So,
Interesting.
yeah, there's been rumors about that, but there's more coming about that there will be a Shang-Chi sequel.
That's interesting.
Yeah, is that one of the Phase 6 films we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, and I wonder if that'll set up his sister as like an antagonist, because I'm pretty sure she was in charge of the Ten Rings at the end of that film. So, she might be working against her brother. You never know.
Yep. And there was that rumored 10 Rings Disney Plus series too as well a while back. I haven't heard anything about it again, but there was a rumored series.
Mhm.
He's not going to be doing Secret Wars, it sounds like. There'll be a different director. So we're not going to have that same continuity we had with Infinity War and Endgame with the Russo brothers, but Crescent is just directing, he's not writing it. So I feel as long as they have continuity with the writers, that anyone can direct Secret Wars after Cretton does the Kang Dynasty. But Scott Derrickson did say on social media that at this time he's a no for Secret Wars. So
Well, I mean, we've heard the Russo brothers say, like, for a long time ago too, that they would love to do something like Secret Wars. I think that would be awesome. We may not ever get that to happen, but even if they chose somebody else, the most important thing is the writing, as you said.
Yep.
Like, if the writing lines up, you can get a good director, but make sure the writing lines up and everything connects well.
moving on to Jamie Alexander. She's pushing support for a Lady Sif series. She says, listen up, guys. If you want to see a Lady Sif series, start pitching your ideas and we'll put something together and make it happen. It would be so much fun to continue with this. And honestly, I think I want to see a Disney Plus series of Lady Sif. I want to know where she's been, how she popped up on that one planet that we saw her in Love and Thunder, and kind of how they played off between after the after the Dark World into now, because she's been gone for a while.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like a lot of characters after Dark World that were in that Thor franchise kind of just fell off, and maybe it's because they didn't know what to do with them, but now we've got places for them to pop back up. And I mean, I can't even tell you what year the Dark World was made, but that's got to be almost a decade ago that it was probably made. I know it was after probably 2012, so but yeah, so I can imagine that it's probably nice to see her character kind of get some revitalization, like in Loki. See her pop back up, even though it was kind of just like a throwaway scene.
Yep.
But to see her also in Thor: Love and Thunder, we've gotten her twice now, pretty quickly, in like the last year or so. So they need to do something with her.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Or has like a Asgardian series and, have her part of it, train the next generation possibly, like we saw her at the end of Love and Thunder,
Mhm.
working with Heimdall's son, Axel. So
Yeah.
a lot of ways they could do it.
Mhm.
X-Men journalist Devin Faraci. Despite the introduction of mutants at the end of Miss Marvel, there is no mutants in Phase 5. I know why. I know why there's no mutants. I know why there's going to take a while. There might be individual mutants. There might be other characters that show a certain interest. The reason why is the contractual situation with the original Fox stuff is going to be in effect until 2025. So if they don't want to use those actors, they have to wait until that contract expires. If they're going to be hitting stuff in 2025 at the end of the contract, then they'll announce it. But I think they actually can't go into production until the contract's up. So it's not even a release. It's the same thing with Superman. So they're going to be Phase 7. So you're not going to see the mutants until Phase 7. They're going to be mutants that will show up after the multiverse saga is over. So that's interesting that they have confirmations about the contractual issues and that we probably won't see like the mutants that we know and have seen in the past until Phase 7. We'll probably see Deadpool in Phase 6. Probably, I'm sure Deadpool's gonna be one of those unannounced titles in Phase 6. We'll probably see some different mutants than we've seen in the past. Maybe
Mhm.
something like Polaris or
Yeah. Or Forge or something.
yeah, or
You know.
Forge or even more for
Yeah.
any of those people, but not the core that we've seen in any of the X-Men films.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, personally, I know this will sound weird, but they could always do that thing where they kind of have two Wolverines in the MCU and they bring Hugh Jackman back and they have him play like an old man Logan and just slide him in and out, like just bring him in for Secret Wars
Yeah,
and then just he's like, "Oh, I don't really want to do this anymore." Like, then he leaves and then you kind of get to ride out that contract a little bit and then cast somebody else. And you could keep them both or you could have just one.
yeah.
Like we have the multiverse now, so.
Which I do believe for Secret Wars, if we get any of those characters, it's going to be a mix of old and new, and not just like the very old ones or the new ones. I could see a mix. Like we could see the new Cyclops with, not James Marsden, but the other one who played Cyclops with, um, Hugh Jackman Wolverine, or we could see Famika Jansen's Jean Grey with the newer Cyclops. We could see different beasts. Not Kelsey Grammer, but maybe Nicholas Holt. Kind of mix the teams up a little bit.
Mm.
That'd be kind of interesting to see how that worked out.
I think this makes a lot of sense why, they chose to use Patrick Stewart in Multiverse of Madness. I think this also makes sense why probably they chose Evan Peters for Quicksilver, the fake
Yep.
Quicksilver and WandaVision, because that's probably like them playing with that. It's actually kind of smart to make people think, like, oh, like this is Quicksilver. It's actually not, like, but it is the same actor. So I
Yeah.
mean, they kind of it's kind of cool, I think, what they did there. But yeah, I mean, we've seen this already kind of play out in a couple of situations. So
Ralph Boner.
all that for that joke.
Quantum Mania news. Peyton Reed teasing some surprising cameos. Oh yes, there's great fun in store for everyone and some surprising faces that may show up in the quantum realm. So yes, we're very excited. I'm hoping that he's talking about Fantastic Four. Like we've always talked about, that'd be the great way to bring them in is through the Ant-Man series and through Quantum Realm and have them be the negative zone, be some kind of area of the quantum realm. So hopefully he means that, or maybe we'll see some past characters through it as well. Interesting to see.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see the quantum realm kind of explained a little bit more, and they definitely need to kind of make some sort of further understanding on it. I mean, it was heavily involved in Endgame, and now it seems like we're going to be taking like a really deep dive in it, probably moving forward. There's got to be tons of Kang connections with the quantum realm and stuff. So I'm sure that they can possibly do flashbacks, all kinds of stuff. So.
Plus that city that we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Mm-hmm.
And then also too, we know about aging is different also in the quantum realm because Janet Van Dyne versus Scott Lang's time, and different areas, different aging techniques, and it could be that if the Fantastic Four, if they make the negative zone as some area of the quantum realm, they may not have aged at all because of they were in that negative zone portion of it,
Mm.
as an example. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also think it would be really crazy too if they just completely like changed things up and made, say, Kang like a relative of somebody like Scott Lang or something like that, like way down the line, and then basically like Scott takes Hank Pym's technology as an electrical engineer and does something with it, and Kang's like a long lost descendant way down the road, and Kang's like, oh, like I figured out that the quantum realm's basically like between all the different universes, like
kind of cool. Yeah.
yeah, and so like, I wouldn't have done this had it would have not been for you, Hank Pym, and like all them, and that would be just like boom, dude. Like
Yeah.
your mind would be blown, like, So
I hope we get some of those things because they can do a lot with this movie. And so I'm looking forward to it. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna kick off 2023 the right way.
They have a lot of directions they can take here, so I'm curious to see where they go.
She-Hulk news. Director Kat Corio teases Deadpool style fourth wall breaking with some big surprises. Oh, we've got some big surprises coming to you regarding the fourth wall. I always love to say that She-Hulk has been breaking the fourth wall since 1980, way before Deadpool, way before Fleabag, and it's part of who she is. She's a woman who controls her own narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And Tatiana Maslany says Charlie Cox Daredevil won't be a small cameo. So I guess it sounds like we're going to be expecting a lot of Daredevil in this series.
Yeah,
Also, too. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just say maybe a little She-Hulk Daredevil team up, maybe.
Yep.
So that would be awesome.
And then there is a change in the premiere. So it originally was going to premiere on Wednesday, but She-Hulk is delayed by 1 day. So it will premiere on Thursday, and the show will be every Thursday, breaking from Disney Plus's every Wednesday release schedule.
What's the reasoning behind that?
I don't know, unless it's going to lead into something else or some crossover. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out with D23.
I wonder if they have something else coming out on Wednesdays or something, right?
Yeah.
So, that's really interesting.
And then director Kat Corio, how Daredevil fits into She-Hulk. They match each other's wits, is what I can say. I'm definitely excited for Daredevil to make his appearance because I think he's going to be a crowd favorite, but I can't tell you anything else about that. The Marvel Police is a real thing. I don't want to get arrested by them.
Yeah. Marvel Police is like the TVA. You don't want to get pruned. but yeah, I mean, like it's so funny. You see like different actors and actresses, like they go and they give an interview or something. They don't know what they can say and what they can't say almost about things. So I can understand the they're in. You see people now coming out and they're like talking about roles that they're potentially in or they've been talking about, and they don't even want to talk about the role. So they're afraid to, I guess.
Yeah, which is good. So,
Mm-hmm.
And then we also know that Marvel does release fake spoilers out there to throw people off too as well, or fake news out there.
They do it with the trailers too. I mean, look at Infinity War. We got a scene of Hulk running with a bunch of people, and that scene never really happened. So,
what if we see that scene like in Secret Wars? Like there's some flashback to that, or in some of the deal with through Kang.
Like they take all that footage that they were gonna use for that, and then they just like slide it into Secret Wars, and it's like, oh, this is a different reality.
Yeah,
it's played out differently. Yeah, that'd be wild.
Or we see it in What If the Avengers won Infinity War, and that gets thrown into there as a cartoon scene in What If.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Like Thanos just steps out on Wakanda, and that's when Vision just cuts him in half with the Mind Stone.
Thanos go ham on him.
Yeah, like. Oh man, that'd be wild.
The last bit of She-Hulk news is that Disney Plus will drop an all-new episode of Marvel Studios Legends on August 10th, and this one will be called Bruce Banner. So I'm excited they can't do anything else with any of their characters in there, because they don't have much footage on it. I guess they could do Daredevil, but they'll probably say that for when his series comes out. So Bruce Banner, does make sense for that one.
I wonder if Matt Murdock will meet Bruce Banner in this show or not. Like, I feel like that would be an awesome thing to kind of see happen on screen. I mean, I'm loving the She-Hulk and Matt Murdock thing. But the thing about Daredevil too is like I want to see Daredevil interact with like everybody. It seems like we're getting a lot of him in the
Yep.
future. So
Fantastic Four, Kevin Feige on the story. A lot of people know this origin story. A lot of people know the basics. How do we take that and bring something that they've never seen before? He also added that given the super team launched the Marvel Comics universe back in 1961, we set a very high bar for ourselves by bringing that to the screen, which I've been saying we don't need another origin story. They've done it
yeah.
3 times or twice. Marvel Studios or Marvel Film have done it twice. There's that one film from the 90s or 80s on YouTube that never got released. There's the
Mhm.
cartoons. We've seen that origin story so many times, and I'm hoping what they do something where it's like a Lost in Space type vibe for them with flashbacks, and then make Reed Richards kind of the villain at the start of that, that transform him into a hero arc by the end. That's the way
Mhm.
I would see how Fantastic Four go in the MCU for that movie.
Yeah, have Reed kind of become like the very villain that he wanted to stop almost kind of type deal. Because I mean, like you could kind of have, like I hate to say this, but we've had three franchises, but really only two that actually made it to the actual market because of that one film.
Yep.
But it's funny with we know The Thing, we know Reed Richards, we know Sue Storm and Johnny Storm. Everybody's pretty like well versed on these characters now. Like we've seen Doom in 2 franchise movies, 3 I guess if you count the one that really never like appeared. But like it's like I'm personally not sold on them attaching Doom to a Fantastic Four thing right away. I mean, they could go
Don't do
somebody
it.
like Mole Man and give us just like a fun random villain for a Fantastic Four, kind of movie or show or whatever they choose to do, which I guess it'll be a movie, but like yeah, I think there's plenty of other options they can
Yeah,
go with
Mole Man,
Fantastic.
Molecule Man, Annihilus, Blastar. Especially if they're going to be trapped in the negative zone for a good period of the film, that could be Annihilus and Blastar as the villains, and we kind of being like a quasi villain, type of thing
Mhm.
until he kind of gets to his arc. But yeah, they could go so many ways with that. And that franchise introduced so many characters because we got Inhumans, we got Namor, we got Black Panther. Pretty much everyone started off through in Fantastic Four being introduced pretty much. So they
Mhm.
could do a lot of things in there as far as villains and any other cameos too. Also,
Mhm. I completely agree.
Deadpool. Kevin Feige says Deadpool will take a big swing. He says, how do we elevate it in the way we've been able to with Civil War and Infinity War and Ragnarok? Um, it's very fun to be in the world of Ryan Reynolds' show. So
Huh.
interesting.
Yeah, Deadpool. I just hope that they show lots of blood and lots of violence. That's like that's my requirement for Deadpool. So, I'm hoping that we don't lose a lot of the previous formula that we've seen in the previous 2 films.
Agreed. I wonder if we're gonna get more Juggernaut and more Colossus too.
Yeah, and that
And Cable.
line that he says in that movie suddenly like means something completely different where he's like, "Oh, look at these X-Men. There's only 2 of you. Like it's funny, we have this big old house. It's almost like the studio couldn't afford another X-Men." Like, like I don't know why I laugh so hard at that every time, but yeah, I guess that means something new now with the contractual stuff we know, so.
It'd be kind of cool if they do a play on Deadpool kills Marvel Universe and then Deadpool kills all the past Fox characters, like
Yeah.
X-Men and Fantastic Four, and just goes through and kills everyone.
Yeah, I mean, they could even do something like Deadpool versus the X-Men and just have him kill all the X-Men in the Fox
Yep.
universe and just like pop out and he's like, "I finally got that Hugh Jackman," and then he walks into the MCU and that's his entrance to the MCU.
That'd be great. How do you say her name? The actress who played America Chavez, is it Ziatul Gomez?
I'm so bad at pronouncing names.
Yeah.
That sounds right. So,
So, anyways, she teases America Chavez's role in the multiverse saga, saying, "I can't really ignore the fact that her powers are traveling the multiverse, and the next chapter of the MCU is literally the multiverse saga." Then she was asked about her potentially being a mutant, which she could be a mutant, because we don't know where she is because there's only one of her. So she could be a mutant. She could be a
like a
A Nexus
Beyonder
being,
or something.
yeah, a Beyonder. She could be a Watcher. She could be, born outside where the TVA is, possibly born within the TVA. So
Mhm.
all kinds of ways they could take her. But she says, yeah, I mean, I'm honestly open to anything as long as we get to see. I think there's so much more to her and her story that we haven't really seen yet. I think there are lots of layers of America, and I think there are some fun things to explore. Hopefully, we get to explore the things. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say.
I think
So,
I think it would be cool if she was born in the quantum realm and they get to like Chronopolis or whatever that city is going to be called, and they get there and she's like, "Oh yeah, this is my home," and
yeah,
everybody, what? Like this is where you're from? Like suddenly it all makes sense. Like why you don't have variants because you were born in between the universes.
yep.
Most
Yep.
like
She could
so,
be from Dark Dimension, even too.
yeah, she could.
Yeah.
So it'd be awesome.
Thunderbolts movie. So Wyatt Russell, who plays U.S. agent, he said he has not received a call yet. He said, I'm still waiting. I know they're doing it and I know they're planning it. I gotta imagine that there's something in there for me, but yeah, until you get the true actual prompt, like, okay, this is your start date and this is when you're coming. This is when you rent your house, and this is when you logistically you need to start setting up to do these things. That's when I shifted my mindset to going to do that. Other than that, before you get to that call, things can change on a dime. You never know.
Hmm. Yeah, I loved him as John Walker too, so I really hope that he's in that movie or show. Is it a movie or a show?
I
Um,
don't know yet.
yeah. I was gonna say
I think it's a movie.
yeah. It would be interesting if they made it a show, but I feel like it should be a movie. And like we've said before, they should almost market it kind of like as a Suicide Squad film.
Yep.
Kind of like you don't know who's gonna, make it to the end of this movie or not, and who's still gonna be here. But then, I mean, they could always throw in like somebody random like Deadpool, and he's never gonna go anywhere, so he
Yeah.
could just be like that constant comedy relief, like but yeah, I mean, Wyatt Russell as John Walker, we've got to have him as part of that movie. I remember I was really disappointed when I heard this for the first time.
Yeah, I think he will be. I think he could be playing coy, or they just haven't. There's still some things to be worked out before they get into any kind of production or anything like that. So,
Hmm.
Secret Invasion. The rumor is Olivia Colman will be the MCU based version of Union Jack. And so what this could be is that she could be the first person with the mantle, possibly in lead into Union Jack or her relative or something like that. But that's the rumor that's going around with her in Secret Invasion. Christopher McDonald hints at a new writer during reshoots. So if you don't know who Christopher McDonald is, one of the actors. He's Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore.
Hmm.
He's also in Secret Invasion. He said the director, Ali Salim, is fantastic. It's a delight to play the storyline. Basically, it's really, really good. We're actually heading back to London on Tuesday to do additional scenes. They're doing reshoots in a way that's making the story better. Apparently, there's a new writer in there. He's amped it up, and the series is going so much deeper than before. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think he was also the villain in the superhero movie too. That kind of like funny kind of knockoff movie that they did years ago. Um, he plays, I think it's got like that dude Drake Bell as like the main hero in the movie, and he's like Dragonfly, and his villain is like I guess supposed to be like a Norman Osborn type,
Okay.
and he's supposed to be sort of like Spider-Man, I guess. And I think that guy that plays Shooter McGavin plays the villain in that movie. So I've always seen him in villain roles. So, my first thought is he's got to be a villain. And
Super Skrull?
yeah, maybe. Or maybe he's just like a head scroll or something like that,
Or is he Osborn?
yeah, that would be interesting. that would be a big swerve, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like Osborn got the Iron Patriot suit in the Dark Avengers, so and that was like a former Tony Stark suit, I believe.
Yep.
So like we've already seen the Iron Patriot suit in the MCU in Iron Man 3. So they could always just be like, oh, this is Norman Osborn. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I just bought Hammer Industries. And by the way, I want that suit. That way I can make some alterations to it again with Hammer Industries. And then just make it his own. Boom.
Yeah, the only hiccup would be is Sony rights with that one.
Yeah.
But maybe they work something out where it's a Lin back. Because speaking of Sony rights, Spider-Man freshman year, Brad Winderbaum clarifies places in MCU. Well, like we said in the panel, it follows the pattern that you see in Captain America Civil War. Down to Peter getting the broken Blu-ray player from the trash, and he walks into his apartment for the famous moment where Tony Stark is waiting for him to offer him the Stark internship and take him to Berlin. But because of things that happen in the multiverse, because of new random occurrences, it's not Tony Stark who's waiting for him there. It's Norman Osborn, and that sends his life in an unexpected trajectory that collides him with many unexpected characters in the Marvel universe. So it's basically multiverse and not main universe for freshman year. Which I don't know why they're doing that, unless there's something they worked out with Sony to transition him over to Sony. Maybe this is his origin in the Sony Spider-Man universe and not the MCU. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this.
Maybe it's just one of those things where it's like it's almost like a self-contained little thing, that show. So, maybe they don't plan on really, it's almost like its own little universe. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like one universe in the multiverse that it just exists. And I mean, they could either pull from it down the road or not if they chose.
Yeah, true.
So
maybe this leads to Osborn in the MCU proper. Maybe Secret Wars.
Maybe.
The Marvels. So the rumor is that Zay Ashton is playing a character named Dar-Benn. She's the main villain in Kree General of the film. If you know the Kree General Alden, basically it's his partner in crime. Before it was reported that she was playing like a gender swap version of Alden, but this sounds like she'll be Dar-Benn and basically a ally, partner in crime to Alden. So
interesting.
Jon Favreau has spoken lately. He was nervous about Iron Man in Endgame, according to Anthony Russo. Part of the pressure came from Jon Favreau, who called us up after he read the script and said to us, "Are you guys really going to kill Iron Man?" He's like, "You can't do this. It's going to devastate people. You don't want them walking out of the theater in the traffic. We did it anyway." It worked out, It
did.
Yeah.
It did. And honestly, I do think that overall, that was probably the best way for Tony Stark's journey to probably end in the MCU, was for him to die. Because I think that at the end of it all, like, he kind of played a large part in the MCU, and that was like such a retribution for him to be able to kind of be the one to snap Thanos away after losing so badly to Thanos in that brief one-on-one they had on Titan. And he had prepared for it for decades, so.
And if you think about it too, with that line to Cap saying that he's not the one that sacrificed play in every Avengers film, who was the one making the sacrifice play? Because the first Avengers, he was the one that took the nuke through the wormhole. In Age of Ultron, he was the one underneath the city trying to make a spire or whatever they called it to blow it up. And then in Infinity War, going to Thanos to face him, to try to stop things. And then and pretty much almost dying in space, and then the snap in Endgame. So every Avengers film in that Infinity Saga, Tony Stark made the sacrifice play in those movies.
And not only that, but I mean, he faced every one of those problems pretty much head on. So it's kind of one of those things where I think that I know that they originally were talking about having him say some different dialogue, but him saying "I am Iron Man" and snapping was like the perfect way for him to go out. Just in my mind.
Agreed. Madam Web News. So set photos show it's Earth 96-283, which is the same universe as Raimi's Spider-Man. Which goes back to the earlier report saying it looks like they're filming in a New York style setup, just like Raimi's Spider-Man films were. Also, Zozia Mehmet joins the cast as well. It seems like every week there's someone new joining that cast. So not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sorry, I just broke up a little bit. I kind of missed a little bit of what you said there.
Basically it's going to be set in Earth 96-283, so the same universe as Raimi's Spider-Man, and also said that the set for New York looks just like Raimi's Spider-Man set 2 as well. So interesting to see. You still there? Oh, you just dropped.
Interesting.
Okay, there you go. Your indicator dropped, but you're back now.
Okay.
The Guardian Holiday Special. James Gunn via Twitter says the Guardians Holiday Special is the epilogue of Phase 4. Because we didn't see it in the Phase lineup. So it's going to be the epilogue of Phase 4, he says. Gunn also says about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, there's an Easter egg in Volume 1, and it connects to Volume 3. So he says, I'm putting an official moratorium on responding to guesses about the Easter egg in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 until after Volume 3 is released, because I don't want to affect anyone's enjoyment of Volume 3 if by some chance someone gets the whole thing. Sorry. So it sounds like there's an Easter egg from Volume 1 that has still not been discovered yet by fans. You still with me? Alex having internet problems. I'll keep going though. James Gunn also said about the tone. Oh, looks like he dropped out. James Gunn also said about the tone in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He said it's an incredible emotional story, much more mature than other Guardian stories in a way, because, we started making these movies. They were 10, 11 years old when we saw the first one. Now they're 20, 21 years old. The movie has grown up with them. And it looks like Alex is back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what just happened.
No problem. I was talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. Basically, people are still trying to guess an Easter egg from Volume 1 that ties to Volume 3. And no one's guessed it yet. And he's not going to answer more questions because it's going to be tied into Volume 3. And it could be ruined the story for Volume 3. So, looks like you're dropping again. D23, Marvel Studios D23 Expo presentation will take place on September 10th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that's coming up here with just over a month away for D23. And then Ironheart, according to Deadline, RuPaul Drag Race winner Shea Coulee has joined the production in a secret role. And hopefully these last two things, you can hear me okay, Alex. I think you're still having problems with the internet. But if you're there, we mentioned some feature films in Phase 5 or Phase 6 that we don't know yet, but there's been some speculation. So Patton Oswalt, who plays Pip the Troll in the Eternals post-credit scene, he was recently on the Today Show, and he said they've announced there's going to be an Eternals sequel, and Chloe Zhao is going to direct it. Patton said on the morning show, so hopefully there'll be more adventures of Star Fox and Pip. So
Interesting.
it's not, it's not an official. Yeah, it's not official, but it looks like it's an unofficial confirmation of Eternal sequel.
Okay. And interesting enough, Patton Oswalt is actually voicing Matthew the Raven in the Sandman series too.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, very cool.
And then for the other big piece of news that just dropped yesterday, Moon Knight news. So director Mohab Diab and Oscar Isaac teased season 2. So a fan was asking them if a second season is coming while they're in Cairo, Egypt, in a TikTok video. The response was, and this is Oscar Isaac's response, said, why else would we be in Cairo? Diab has also shared the TikTok on his Twitter feed. So it possibly does sound like we could get season 2 of Moon Knight, which, could be a way for them to introduce the Punisher possibly, because, maybe, someone hires the Punisher to kill Mark Spector. Yeah. Moon Knight, Mark Spector, whatever happens with Arthur Harrow, maybe there's some connection there. So maybe we'll see Punisher come through Moon Knight season 2. But both of them are in Cairo, Egypt right now. And that's where most of Moon Knight season 1 was done. So, hopefully we'll find these things out for Eternals and for Moon Knight season 2 next month at D23.
Yeah, and they both had military backgrounds, I'm pretty sure, at one point. So they could always connect them in that way too.
Yep, Spectre and Castle. And the last bit of news, Predator Prey, that will be streaming on Hulu tonight. So those you don't know, the Predator is Marvel, and it's been Marvel for a while now. And so that movie is out on Hulu. So if you have that package of Disney Plus and Hulu and ESPN Plus, make sure to go check out Predator Prey, because everything I'm hearing about it is been really good. And this is basically going to be the prequel of the first predator hunt on Earth during the Native American time, specifically with the Comanche tribe. So looks like we're just at the hour. So that was our big news special today. So a lot of stuff we did today. Anything before we close out, Alex?
I don't know if anybody can hear me or if
I can
I'm
hear you.
still breaking up or not. But okay, yeah. Sorry, I've been kind of freezing in and out here. So, but yeah. I'm looking forward to. I heard briefly about the Predator, but I'm really interested to see what they do moving forward with Predator stuff. If that would be a really cool like MCU pull, if we one day saw the Predator in the MCU, that would be weird, you know. So.
Yeah.
Especially after like the Predator versus Alien movies and stuff like that. I've never been a big fan, but they're entertaining to watch, you know. So
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close out. Thanks for everyone for sticking with us today on a Thursday evening. We will be live again Sunday, and Andy will be back. So we'll talk to you then. Don't forget to, if you listen to us on the podcast, to like and rate us on the podcast platforms. For those of you who may not be in our group, make sure you join our group on Facebook. We have our sister group. So we have our main group, Marvel Evolution, Discussion, News and Theories. We also have Star Wars Evolution, Discussion, News and Theories, and DC Discussion, News and Theories. Our info is on the stream page. We have a link tree, all that stuff. But make sure you subscribe and like. And we will talk to you on Sunday. Thank you, everybody.
bye, guys.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced
All right. Well, as I remember,
at Avenger headquarters?